Well, welcome back, my friends. It's Embrace the Question, and we're going to do another session of Bible study with me. I'm glad you're here. We are finishing up Genesis. We're chapter 47, and we've just finished, well, the last time I released a video, which has been about a week, I guess, a little bit more, we finished chapter 46. We talked about Jacob and his reunion with his long-lost son, Joseph. So this is a bit of a continuation of that story with Jacob, Joseph, and there's some really neat stuff thrown into this one. Okay, I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit excited about this one because there's some stuff here that I really haven't seen before. I think you're gonna get a kick out of it. So let's get started. Now, before I go too far, we need to establish the fact that you need a bag of this. This is the Galloway Dark from solwaycoffee.com. And I like dark roast, right? It's just, you can taste it, right? Ever since COVID, and yes, I had it, and my taste buds have not recovered since COVID. So it takes something pretty potent to get through to me. This is what I like right here. So get you some. It's solwaycoffee.com. The link is in the description below. Do yourself a favor. All right, it's Genesis 47. Let's just start reading, and we'll stop when we have something to talk about on this. And there's quite a few places. Verse 1. So Joseph went in and told Pharaoh, "My father and my brothers, with their flocks and herds, and all that they possess, have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen." And from among his brothers he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. Interesting number there, 5. I don't know if he just couldn't trust the rest of them. Maybe 5 were particularly clean or maybe well-spoken. I don't know. I would imagine that he took the 5 that he thought would make the best impression on Pharaoh. And we don't know who the 5 were. That's kind of interesting. So maybe it doesn't matter. Apparently the author didn't think it did. Let's keep going. Verse 3. Pharaoh said to his brothers, "What is your occupation?" And they said to Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, as our fathers were." They said to Pharaoh, "We have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. And now please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen." So we already knew they were going to land in the land of Goshen. That's where they were going to be. Now here's something that you might not realize, and that is Goshen it's not really in the center of Egypt. It's not like you would, like in the United States, somebody comes in, you don't just give them Chicago, right? It's the dead center of the United States. That would not have made Pharaoh feel very secure. So what they're doing is they're picking an outlying territory, something that's really, it's on the Nile Delta, right? So there's not a lot of Egypt past Goshen. It's an outlying area. Something that makes Pharaoh feel a little bit more secure. Now, you wonder why that the Egyptians hated shepherds. I understand from one commentator that Egyptians hated shepherds because at some point prior in their history, they had trouble with some countries, some marauding countries that were by trade shepherds. They were shepherds. So they had a bad taste in their mouth from shepherding countries, neighboring countries that did that primarily as their occupation. So I think all of this is in an effort to set Pharaoh at ease. Okay, so Pharaoh replies. He says to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you." Verse 6 here. "The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land." He calls Goshen the best of the land. "Let them settle in the land of Goshen, and if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock." That's good business. This Pharaoh wasn't a dummy. He knew these guys did this for a living. He owned some livestock. He's going to let these guys manage his livelihood as far as that goes. I think that's pretty smart. Okay, so verse 7. Then Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, and stood him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How many are the days of the years of your life?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourning." I love that. One, it's interesting. He's saying 130 years. I'm a young guy still, and my road has been short. Well, most of us, if we ever manage to hit 130, we're not making this statement, right? He was comparing, obviously, to his father and his grandfather, and probably remembers the days even of the sons of Noah, which were very great in comparison. So this particular gentleman is unhappy with 130 years. And I don't know if that he's unhappy. That might be unfair to say, but he's saying they just don't compare. Few have been the years of my life, and they've been hard/evil years. But what I love, I think, the most about this is how Jacob says, these are the years of my sojourning, meaning he's saying in his speech to Pharaoh, he's saying, I always knew that this was a temporary gig. I always knew that I wouldn't be here that long. We are strangers in a strange land here. We are sojourners. The world is not my home, right? That's the bumper sticker, isn't it? Not of this world. It's just not where we're going to be long term. And I think that's pretty cool that they even realized it back in the days of the patriarchs who lived a lot longer than we do. A lot longer than we do. Okay, verse 10. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. And then Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. Now, that's an interesting statement. A lot of you may recognize the name Ramses. It is mentioned again in Exodus as one. It was a town being built as a store city. Okay, as a place. It's kind of a warehouse city, if you will. It's unknown whether or not Ramses as a town actually existed at the time that this event was happening, the settling of Goshen, or if it was just named that by the author because the author already knew that this was where the town would be built. I find it interesting from a historical point of view. Not really that important, I guess, except that it is going to show up again in Exodus. So they're settling in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh has commanded. Now, verse 12. And Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with food, according to the number of their dependents. Remember, we're in a famine, so you don't get all you want, you get what is allotted to you. Verse 13, now there was no food in all the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of famine. So hold up the two lands together. We have Egypt, and over here we have Canaan. What is the difference in the height of famine? The only difference is preparation. They both languish. They both are affected greatly. The people are oppressed by this famine. But one land is prepared, the other land is not. Strange that the preparation is in Egypt, and it is by a Hebrew, Joseph, someone who calls home Canaan. That is just a strange dynamic. It seems a little backwards, doesn't it? But that's the way it's happening. Okay, now if you take the next till the end of the chapter, starting with verse 13, and you remove all references to Egypt and Joseph, and you just substitute in the name of another king and another country, as one commentator said, you have a perfect description of a totalitarian government. Think communist. That's what's going on here. And yet, we have a story being told about a salvation that's occurring right before our eyes. So this is a little bit strange. It does seem very communistic. As we read, you'll notice. So verse 14, and Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, in exchange for the grain that they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. So the money's going one direction, into the government. Verse 15, and when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? Our money is gone. And Joseph answered, give your livestock, and I will give you food in exchange for your livestock if your money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for their horses, the flocks, the herds, and the donkeys. He supplied them with food in exchange for all their livestock that year. Verse 18, and when that year was ended, they came to him the following year and said to him, we will not hide from my Lord that our money is all spent. The herds of livestock are my Lord's. There is nothing left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we with our land will be servants to Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for all the Egyptians sold their fields, because the famine was severe on them. The land became Pharaoh's. All right, and as for the people, he made servants of them from one end of Egypt to the other. So here's what we've got. We've got a famine so great that the people have brought all their money to buy the food. That was gone the first year. They ran out of money, so he says, okay, just swap your livestock. I'll take your horses and your cows and your goats and everything you've got. That's what you'll buy food with. You wonder, why didn't they eat the livestock? Perhaps you just can't subsist completely on your own livestock. So they had to trade to Pharaoh for their livestock. And then next was land, and then next was themselves. Indentured servitude. So we see appearing here in Genesis 47, what? Slavery. It's appearing. It's saving their life. And I'm not sure that there is a better solution. Nothing that's appearing to me. But they are going into slavery even now. Okay? Even the Egyptians are going into slavery now. Okay, so verse 21, as for the people, he made servants of them from one end of Egypt to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived on the allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. That's reminiscent of the Levitical arrangement. God's command, the Levites can't own land. So everybody that did own land had to provide for the Levites. There is a special provision going on for the priests of Egypt as well. These were not godly priests. These were priests of demonic entities, all of the gods of Egypt. And yet there is a very marked similarity between how they are treated and how the Levitical priesthood is treated that we'll find in Deuteronomy. Okay? I think that's kind of interesting, and I've never seen that before. So only the land of the priests he did not buy. For the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived on the allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Behold, I have this day bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And at the harvests you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field, and as food for yourselves and your households, and as food for your little ones." So, okay, you're going to sow the land. Everything that you get from reaping the land, 80% you get to keep, and 20% you give to Pharaoh. Again, similarities. The tithe came from God's followers at an early time when they were to give a tenth, which is what the tithe means, a tenth. This is a 20th. Interesting parallel. A 20th goes to Pharaoh. All right, not a 20th, but 20%. That's different. And they said, "You've saved our lives. May it please my Lord, we will be servants to Pharaoh." So Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, and it stands to this day that Pharaoh should have the fifth. The land of the priests alone did not become Pharaoh's. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they gained possessions of it, or in it, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly. Okay, so they're continuing to fulfill the original commission of being fruitful and multiplying. And as we'll find out, this begins to scare the later pharaohs. Okay, verse 28, "And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, 'If now I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place.' He answered, 'I will do as you have said.' And he said, 'Swear to me.' And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed." And it looks like he is about to die, but we have another chapter with Jacob. There's still a few more details to talk about with the story of Jacob. So now let's go back just a little bit and tie this maybe to Jesus. How does this parallel? Are there parallels that we can make if Joseph is our type and shadow of Jesus? I think so, because when you have a situation that is so strict, so restrictive, I mean, these people didn't have a lot of choices. Joseph and Joseph alone was offering them life. And that bears with our Jesus image, right? But then they had to offer all their money. They had to give all their livestock. They ended up giving all their land. How does that tie in? And I believe the answer is this. When you say yes to Jesus, you may not realize it, But what you're doing is you're saying, I give all I have to you. You cannot follow Jesus ultimately without giving him everything that you have. But it's a good trade-off because what you get in return is life. Joseph's giving life back in the form of bread. Jesus gives life back in the form of the bread of life, the living water that never runs out. These are good trades, good business decisions, if you really want to know the truth. So that is our story of Genesis 47. It's pretty interesting. And we are, as I said, not quite through with Jacob's story. We'll do that one next week. I do hope you guys enjoyed this. Please take a moment to go out, visit the blog, visit the Patreon. Yes, I need to put some new stuff on Patreon, but I have some stuff that's going on the blog, probably tonight. So you'll want to check that out. There's some stuff, there's some reading there that might just blow your mind. Okay, it's going on tonight. It's about the Remez, so look for it. But until then, hope you guys have a blessed week, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Peace.